Ooh. Hi everyone, and thanks for being here on the Tony Tompkins Show. Glad that you could join with me. Got off to a rough start. I forgot to put up my opening before I put myself live, but there again, it doesn't really matter. It just means that today has been a disastrous day as it is. I planned to do a video earlier on today, and for reasons I wasn't able to do that. But I do welcome you, because remember, this is an opportunity for you to talk about the things that matter to you. And I also suggest that you subscribe to my channel, ring the bell for further notifications. Let me know what you think about particularly the topic which is open for discussion today, which is the poll, which is, should ISIS brides and their children be permitted back into Australia? So we'll be talking a lot about that today, plus a whole host of other issues. Particularly, we'll be looking at the surge of One Nation. There's a new poll out which suggests that in New South Wales, they're doing extremely well. So I want to look at that as well, remembering that this is an opportunity for you to contribute to the conversation, have a conversation with me about the things that matter to you. And I hope that you do just that. But I'm going to start with something that has been weighing on my mind for quite some time, and that's in relation to the ISIS bride. So I've got a couple of videos from Sky News that help us to better understand what all of this is about. Thanks, Mr. Beach. It's good to see that you're on board as well. Afternoon to you and to all those people that have logged on at this particular point. So the conversation that we need to have about ISIS brides is pretty important because it's significant in terms of how we view those people that are coming back to Australia from Syria. Now, the question here is, should they come back? Are they allowed to come back according to the law? And what modifications may need to be made to the law in order to either prevent them from returning to Australia or whatever? And there's a little bit of news in relation to that, particularly in relation to Angus Taylor and what he has to say about some legislation he plans to put before Parliament, which will endeavour to restrict people such as ISIS brides, those people that go to fight in other wars, from returning back to Australia. So the question I'm really asking at the moment, did Australians bring back ISIS brides to start with? There's some accusations that under the Morrison government they did. And did they let them leave in the first place? I think that's really important to understand. So let's be clear about this, because the political spin on the issue is somewhat impressive. There are two big claims that you'll hear. The first is that Australian governments brought ISIS brides back into the country, particularly under the Morrison government. That has been disputed by Angus Taylor and by other people. And the second one is the governments failed because they let these people leave in the first place. And that's an issue that I've been asking as well. Did the government allow this to happen? Are there restrictions one can place on somebody if they're going to leave the country to fight in another war? And I'm going to talk about IDF soldiers in just a moment as well, even though I haven't got any great statistics on that right at this particular point. But both of these claims get thrown around like they're simple, but they're not. Now let's start with, as I said before, the Morrison government. Despite what you might hear, there was no broad policy to repatriate ISIS brides. So let's deal with that in the first instance. The government did bring back a small number of children, particularly orphans, and rightfully so. Now, the reasoning was straightforward, and we all understand this and we get it, but children didn't choose this. The adults did. And when it came to ISIS wives, the Morrison government's position actually at that particular point in time, regardless of the fact that it might be disputed, was quite clear. No active extraction from conflict zones was their policy. National security came first, and we need to talk about that in just a moment as well. If adults returned, it generally wasn't because the government went and got them. That hasn't ever been the case and isn't the current case either. It was because they made their own way back or came through indirect processes, which is the current situation. So the idea that Australia was running rescue missions for ISIS brides, well, that doesn't stack up, and we need to dispense with that straight away, Morrison government and the current government. Now, the second question is, did governments know people were leaving Australia to join ISIS? And this is a question that has worried me for some time. And can we stop them? Well, actually, the answer to that is yes. By around 2012, 2014, agencies like ASIO and the AFP were already aware that Australians were travelling to Syria and Iraq. By 2015, in fact, it was well established. So around 110 Australians had gone, disappeared to either fight or their wives had gone with them. So why weren't they stopped? Now, the reason for that is because at the time, travelling wasn't necessarily illegal. You can go wherever you like. People could fly to places like Turkey quite legally. You can't stop people from doing that. From there, they crossed into Syria. And I can certainly remember that happening at the time, and there's lots of discussions about that back then. By that point, though, they were well outside Australian control. There's also a legal reality here as well. You can't detain someone just because you think they might be doing something wrong. That is a ridiculous assertion. So, of course, as in all cases, there needs to be some evidence for that. Not suspicion, that doesn't work. And according to the law, that won't wash either. And not, having bad vibes about it. So what we need at the end of the day is evidence that they were going to do something that was unlawful. As the situation escalated, though, the laws changed. Australia introduced declared areas laws. So areas in which people were going to, in which would mean that we could cancel their passports. And we expanded counter-terrorism powers. In other words, the government tightened the system once the scale of the problem became quite clear. But by then, people had already left. So it's kind of like, closing the door after the animal has bolted. So I guess here's the reality. Governments knew Australians were leaving. But early on, they didn't have the legal tools to stop many of them. So later, what they did decide to do was to strengthen the laws significantly. And we now know that some of those laws don't apply today, and that the laws are not sufficient, I guess, to be able to stop people from returning to Australia at this particular point. And Angus Taylor has got a proposal that he plans, I guess, to change that. And so when it came back to bringing people back, children, we'd said, children, that's a good idea. ISIS brides, no organised program. So we weren't going to develop a program, and we weren't going to implement people to bring them back. We weren't going to pay for their return, which leaves us with the political argument you still hear today. One side says you let them leave, right? Which is fair enough. The other says we stopped it once we could. So, and that's the position today is, can we stop it? And frustratingly for everyone, both of these things are true. Both arguments, I guess, in regards to this are relatively true, but still needs to be sorted out. Not as satisfying as a simple headline, but a lot closer to the truth. So the question that we're really asking at this particular point in time, and the question I'm putting to all of you, and there's lots of responses at the moment, and I plan to be able to go through those responses as well. And I will be focusing much. I had a criticism actually last time I did a live feed that we weren't focusing enough on your questions and your statements, and I certainly plan to be able to do that as well today. So I guess what I'm asking you is, given what I've just said, given that sometimes the laws do not apply, sometimes we need to create new legislation that allows for a changing situation, and that is part of the proposal that's being put forward. So I've got a clip here that I'm going to show you from Angus Taylor, and this is an interview with Sharry Markson, and I must confess she did it reasonably well. I'm a great critic of Sharry, but in the circumstances here, you've got to give credit where it's due. She did okay, I think, at trying to describe or at least give some feedback to Angus about what he had to say. So here's that particular interview.
Now, to further discuss the ISIS brides issue, I spoke with opposition leader Angus Taylor a little earlier this evening. Here he is. Angus Taylor, thank you very much for your time. We really appreciate it. You've said today you'll introduce legislation to the Parliament to stop terrorist sympathisers from coming to Australia. Would this capture the ISIS cohort themselves and stop them from returning?
Great to be with you, Shari, and yes, that's exactly what it's intended to do. It's intended to prevent repatriation of those linked to terrorist organisations. It will make that a criminal offence. And the purpose here is to make sure that if someone has been a member of a terrorist organisation, has gone into a terrorist zone or has committed a terrorist offence, then they won't be assisted to return to Australia. Now, we know that Tony Burke, close affiliates of Tony Burke, have been doing exactly that, assisting the repatriation of.
Just need to say that we don't know. It's easy for Taylor to say there are friends of Tony Burke's. He doesn't name them. We don't know who they are. I haven't seen any reporting on any of that whatsoever. But nevertheless, maybe there have been some back channels in relation to all of this. I kind of accept that. But the reality is that Albo has said that they're not providing funds or any embassy assistance in order to get these people back. They have to find their own way back. As I've just stated, this has been a policy for quite some time. It's not new that the Morrison government did it. The Labor Party in Australia at the moment are planning to do exactly the same thing, not any assistance. But there are people like Save the Children's Foundation, which is, I think, attempting to assist these people. Maybe this is who he's referring to in this particular instance.
Those linked to terrorist organisations. We think that this is a threat to Australians. And I said one of my top priorities when I came into this role was to protect Australians' way of life.
Yeah, enough. I'll come back to him in just a second. There's this notion, which I find a wee bit upsetting, is what is it that we expect these women to do? Now, we need to be clear that I think someone said there is a 17-year-old kid involved in all of this as well. And the question here is, to what degree have they been radicalised? And the other question is it going to be more beneficial to keep them in the country where they are at the moment, to be further radicalised, possibly kept in these camps for the rest of their lives, even though they're dispensing with this camp in northern Syria? But is it likely that they will either be killed? Is it likely that they will join ISIS and continue the fight? I don't know. No one knows the answers to any of those questions, to be frank. But nevertheless, this is the problem that we're faced with. And children that are particularly young, should they be returned back to Australia so they don't become as radicalised as they could be? I'm going to show you a clip in a moment where there's this continual scene that they run from CNN, where kids were throwing rocks at the CNN reporter when they were at one of these camps. And the question that we'll be asking around all of that was, well, firstly, were they Australian kids? We don't know, probably not. And was it in one of these camps that these people are returning from? Don't know that either. But so there's a great deal of fear, I think, being generated by all of this about these women. Are they going to come back with AR-15s? Are they going to come back with weapons? No, they're not. Are they going to be monitored by the government and ASIO? Yes, they are. Are there going to be programs developed, which I think there are, in relation to how these kids are de-radicalised when they come back? Will there be conversations with the women about what they think and how they feel about ISIS? And my guess is that there are many of these women who are embarrassed about the decision that they made to follow these men who have either lost their lives or are detained in prisons and in camps in Syria. So, there's lots of questions to be answered. And to jump to this notion that this is about somehow these people being such terrible people that they're going to come back and destroy and interrupt our culture, whatever that might mean, that's another issue for another time. But what does it actually mean to have these people returned to Australia? I personally think it would be in their best interest and in our best interest to bring these people back so that if whatever issues they are confronting in terms of their association with ISIS, that those issues be dealt with and that people have an opportunity to adjust back to the way it is in Australia. I was going to say our way of life, but I'm still debating what that is, but back into Australia anyway. So to continue with this, he says...
And so we're not going to stand by and watch this happening without providing an alternative. And the alternative here is a piece of legislation that Labor can support to prevent these people coming back to this country.
Of course, the other question here is, why do you need to put, if the provisions were already there to bring these people back, or if the provisions were there not to bring them back, why would you need to have legislation? Because the Liberal Party and the opposition know that what the government's doing at this particular point in time is purely within the law. It doesn't mean this is what they want to do. I think Albanese, is quite tasteless and senseless about all of this, because if he had his way, he would just leave the people stranded in Syria and they'd probably die, or the children would be further radicalised and wind up fighting for ISIS, because that's their intent. So I don't think that, and I'm disappointed. I'm quite happy to admit that. I don't know what you think, but I'm quite disappointed in Albanese's response to this. I appreciate they may not want to put funding forward. They may not want to give any consular assistance in order to return these people. I understand all of that, and maybe that's okay at one level, but maybe it's not at another. I'll read through your responses in a moment, and there's some interesting comments people have made, so I'll go back to those in just a moment. I'll continue with this, though.
And the legislation to stop the assistance of these people coming back to the country.
The Albanese government's position, and we've heard it repeatedly over the past couple of weeks, is that they say there's nothing they can do because these individuals are Australian citizens. So would the legislation that you're planning to introduce in the next fortnight override this?
Well, it would prevent assistance of those linked to terrorist organisations for repatriation. But can I make a point about the initial principle you put there, which is that they can't stop these people from coming back? Look, Labor has done almost everything except drive them to the airport, Shari. We know that they have allowed a close affiliate of Tony Burke to assist with repatriation. We know they've been issuing passports. We know they have only issued a single temporary exclusion order, which can keep these people out. We know they've been taking DNA tests, which helps them come back to the country. So this is a government that says one thing and does another. It's shrouded.
I think, to me, the issue here is that the government has done everything by law that it can do. And that if unfortunately, if Albo and the Labor Party had their way, these people would be stranded. I think that goes without saying. I think it lacks compassion. I think it lacks understanding about what these women have been through. Many of them, I am convinced, I don't know how I'm convinced, I would imagine that there's many of these women who simply made the lousy decision, had children there, and we certainly don't want those children to be radicalised, so they fight and take the fight up to the West. I don't know how look, ASIO does its due diligence. It actually investigates all these people. They follow through on their phone calls and their contacts, and they know. And there's one woman that has been declined access simply because she does not meet the ASIO criteria for getting back into Australia. It is as simple as that. Now, we've had people returned back to Australia before. Not one of us has ever heard anything in relation to how that person has behaved or whether they've contravened the law. If they have broken the law, if there is a law which says if you go to another country and you fight for that country, then clearly you have broken a law. We don't have such a law specifically, because I also wonder, and this is throwing the cat amongst the pigeons, if you like, I am wondering, we have had some 150 Australians go and fight for the IDF. Now, we know through ICJ and the Criminal Court and so forth, we know that many of those soldiers have committed war crimes, raped, killed, denigrated, maimed innocent people in Gaza. What we don't know is whether any of those 150 people that have returned back to Australia from the IDF, from Israel, whether they have committed any crimes. Now, the way I view it is both organisations are equally wrong. ISIS is crappy, shitty, out to destroy the West. And it's based on an ideology, an extreme form of Muslimism and so forth. But it is not the mainstream Muslim belief. Just like in Israel, it is not the mainstream Jewish belief necessarily about Zionism, because there's many Jews who believe that Zionism is an evil ideology. But so we have, follow me on this, folks. So we have two groups of people, both of them following an ideology that is wrong, both not the ISIS women, incidentally, and not their children. So that's separate. But we do have from the IDF, from people returning back to Australia who fought for the IDF, who potentially have committed crimes. But because of the power of the Zionist movement, and particularly the power of sort of some Jewish groups, that goes under the radar. And this legislation that they're talking about, I wonder whether it encapsulates those people that have gone to fight for a war overseas, and whether or not that would incorporate IDF fighters as well. Just putting it out there. I don't think it's that. I think there is you can distinguish between these two groups of people. And I would suggest at this particular instance that if someone comes back with the IDF ideology, the extreme right-wing ideology of some of these Israel people, won't say Israelites necessarily, but is it just, are they even worse? Are they even worse? Is Zionism in some way as bad as extreme right-wing ISIS-type beliefs? I'll put it out there. Tell me what you think in the comments section below. So someone's got, I'll put up, I say what is right and what is wrong, not who he needs to please home. So thanks, Elizabeth. I'll pop that up. So Elizabeth says, Albo must ask what is right and what is wrong, not who he needs to please homemade. So, yeah, and that's an interesting point too, because is Albo endeavouring to fit into this right-wing propaganda crap about about Muslims, and anybody who is a Muslim is simply wrong, that we need to demonise this particular group of people? Is that the stuff that he's buying into? Because there is now an argument, in fact, which is quite interesting, I think, that basically says that Albo, because they're all afraid now of one nation, I'm going to talk about that in just a moment, but for whatever reason, they're all fearful now of the one nation vote. And I've got an interesting example about that in just a moment, whereby it is apparent that One Nation is now leading all parties in New South Wales. And so I'll talk about that. I think that report, this is another one that came out from on Andrew Bolt's thing. So, who knows what value there is in that. But nevertheless, they do talk about that. So to what extent has One Nation, its extreme right version of radicalisation and radicalisation of the right, how is that now impacting what the Labor Party are now viewing as being making a solid stand against ISIS brides? Are they being influenced by all of this? And now we have the moderates within the Labor Party, which is Albo and his crew. Are they now agreeing that this is such an issue, and that this division that occurs through the ISIS brides is worth fermenting? Because for whatever reason, they are defined as bad people, people we should be wary of, people we should be afraid of because of their belief that they've been radicalised. The answer to anti-Semitism seems to be Islamophobia, someone says. Thanks, Mick. Yeah, so true. So are we breeding? Is Albanese breeding further dissatisfaction by suggesting that Islamophobia is something that he can propagate and in relation to these ISIS brides? Is this kind of what's happening here? So I'll read through your comments in just a second. So someone's got something here I will put up, if I can find it. So someone says the difference is only one has vomited a crime. Simply taking part in a genocide is illegal. If they were there, they have broken our worst laws. That's true, talking about the IDF soldiers. But I must confess, Lee, no one's spoken about that. No one's come out and indicated one iota about the returning of IDF soldiers who potentially are far more dangerous than a group of women, I guess. I'm not offending women here, but certainly the women haven't been carrying, maybe necessarily one or might have, but haven't been carrying guns and haven't been fighting. So it does beg the question, I must confess. So I want to take us now, so thanks for that. So the dangerous company owned by man who doesn't know if the human race should continue. Weird to me, that Muslims claim Abraham as. So this is Dee's comment. I'll put that up here, Dee, for you. So Dee says, weird to me, Mick, especially since don't Muslims claim Abraham as their ancestor too via Ishmael, a long-standing family feud. Yep, and it is, and that's the other issue that we have here, which is the way the Bible by certain people has been described and implemented, and how in the hell we sit by. Here's another debate I'm not going to get into specifically, but is Israel the what is it, the given country? Is it the country that has been offered to them by God? and I'm an atheist, so I'm not going to necessarily buy into that. But why in the hell do we believe? Why in the hell are we believing a book that goes back thousands and thousands of years, of which none can be verified? I don't get it. But nevertheless, lots of people believe in it. Best of luck to you. Not going to argue that. So I've got I'll just play this clip from Andrew Bolt because they bring up something that I think is quite interesting. I know I often say that I can't stand Andrew and I can't generally, but nevertheless, sometimes some information is presented. They're going to be called News 24. And I don't think that refers to 24-hour-a-day news. The 24 refers to something else. If someone can tell me what that is, please remind me, because I can't remember. I did see it somewhere, but I've forgotten. Let me know what you think about that. But I'll bring you to this particular clip.
The result in New South Wales, according to the Roy Morgan poll, is a shock to add to all the other shocks. One Nation leads with 30%.
So, haven't had this verified myself, so I'm taking Andrew's word for this. It's probably it's a Roy Morgan poll, so I guess it's relatively justifiable. But here we've got One Nation at 30%, Labor at 25%, Coalition at 19%, and others. The others at 26% interest me. I don't think Andrew necessarily talks about that, but what it does mean is that the others, the independents and the Teals, are outpacing Labor and the Coalition. And so when it comes to preferences, though, one has to ask, well, do the preferences indicate to us then, or will indicate to us, that Labor will still romp in if the Coalition give their preferences to Labor as opposed to One Nation? So this raises a question. So I'll just continue to play this as well.
Of the primary vote, ahead of the Labor government on 25% and the Coalition trailing badly at 19%. Your response?
It's counterintuitive, Andrew, to what everyone in Ultimo and the ABC and the Sydney Morning Herald think. So people see this violence, they see the street violence, they see these people coming in from Syria. They don't want them. And Labor voters, as well as many Liberal voters, shift their vote to One Nation. I don't know whether the government doesn't get the politics of this either, apart from the ethics and safety issues.
So what are the ethics? And so, okay, help me with this. I like that. The only problem I have watching you, Tony, is you forced me to watch Sky. Yeah, sorry about that. And the reason why I do that is that Sky News provides us with the right-wing version of events. We can't ignore them, unfortunately. I wish we could. I really do. But we can't because they are feeding the algorithm in relation to division, outrage. This is their thing. This is what they do. So we need to be mindful of what they're saying and they're doing because it informs us as to where the other side is coming from. Now, in my view, Labor, in terms of its moderates, also sit further to the right than what I do. I would like the Labor Party to be far more progressive. I'd like the Labor Party to be a little bit more like even some of the Teals are, who are supposed to be moderate in terms of meeting the needs of their electorate. But unfortunately, they're not. So we need to be mindful of all of that as well. But basically what Michael Danby's saying is former Labor MP, gone extreme right, he's decided that because we're returning these women, okay, just figure this out for me. We are returning women and their kids to Australia. As a result of that, the polls are showing that One Nation are now surging. How does that fucking work? On one hand, we've got, why do returning potentially, I don't know what the number is, 30 now? 30 women, or 30 children, I think, 15 women, whatever it is, a small number, returning them back to Australia so they could be living with their family and their extended family, and so they could have a reasonable life as opposed to what they were looking at. Why is it that for some reason it caused so much disruption that people would now choose to vote? This is what Michael Danby's saying, that people would now choose to vote for one nation. Why does this, and the other resounding issue for me is, why does the Islamophobic belief foster so much hatred and so much fear towards a group of people who, the majority of which are peaceful, loving, sincere, respecting people? Why do we have these beliefs that Danby and Sky News and the other ones are manifesting? Why do we allow those beliefs to? Is it because, and answer this for me, folks, is it because basically, and I said this before, I said this around the time of the referendum, it indicated to me that basically we're a racist nation. The fact that one nation have developed as they have and progressed the way that they have because of their sense of mass migration. No such thing as mass migration. Doesn't exist. It's just not there. It's not a thing. But nevertheless, mass migration has dominated the discussion in Australia to the point whereby people are switching to one nation. What in the hell does that tell us about our society? How have we got to this point whereby so many people are so racist that they would side with an organisation who propagate racist views? Why do we even accept this? I don't accept it. I'm appalled by it, in fact. But it appears to have got a grasp of the fear and the resentment and the hate that sits in our community. And no matter, the interesting thing is, no matter what Albie does, to his credit, that says he doesn't want division, that he's calm about it, he tries to advocate for a better understanding between all groups. He wants to confront anti-Semitism, and rightfully so. He wants to confront Islamophobia, and rightfully so. But in doing so, even if you were to take a standard view that we were not going to indulge ever in division or in racist propaganda, and which I believe Albo and the Labor Party are attempting to do, to their credit. Plenty of faults, but to their credit. But you can't, no matter what you do, you can't push against the tide. That is racism. You can't. It's like a tsunami of hate and resentment and grievance. One nation offer nothing to us, nothing to the population, apart from grievance. Can you imagine what would happen if one nation actually won enough seats to govern? We think Trump was a disaster around this because of the people he hired. Imagine what one nation would be like. They'd be hiring, domestic violence abusers. They'd be hiring people that have committed crimes. They would be hiring people who had no understanding whatsoever of how a government is run, even though one could argue that the public service does that for them. But they would be making policies that would destroy this country. Is that what we want? Is that why people are so interested in one nation? Or is it just because one nation breeds hate and fear, and that is all that they're interested in? Because if they are, if you're one of those people out there who watches my videos, and I just want to say thanks for Homemade for Australia, for the $20. Really do appreciate it. And I keep saying every time someone hits that thanks and gives me some money, I always feel a little bit emotional, to be frank. So thank you very much. I appreciate it. I am fearful that we're going down a path from which we will not be able to return in the rest of my lifetime. That we're seeing Australia denigrate into a United States, a state that's so divided and so corrupt. You know, there's nothing in me that says that Pauline Hanson is in any of this because she's interested in you or I. She isn't. Pauline Hanson's doing this because she's interested in Pauline Hanson. Pauline Hanson has been struggling for 30-odd years to get some sort of grasp on power. It's now within tasting distance. And she's going to go for it, you know? And this is about her ego and her narcissism. Nothing else, nothing more. But like many people that have been sucked into Trumpism, there are people in Australia who want to be sucked in as well. It's woeful. It's disgraceful. It's hateful rhetoric that is designed to attract those people who hold hateful thoughts towards minority groups. There is nothing in One Nation's policies which are about helping us. Nothing. So that's my rant. And thanks, Homemade, for that too. Again, I appreciate it. So, what does this tell us? Well, there are other things that we need to take note of. For example, and there's this article here. I think it was from The Guardian by Tori Shepherd, and it says, "Can One Nation make it in South Australia? Liberal Party fears peak humiliation at state election." And the issue here is that the problem in this state, where I am, South Australia, is that we have an election on November 21st, in March 21st. And at that election, there is a good chance the Liberal Party will be completely wiped out. So the counter question we need to be asking here is also, how come the Liberal Party have done so poorly? How come the Liberal Party have not been able to take the fight up? Well, one of the reasons is the Liberal Party, as I've just been saying, and this is part of the argument, one of the reasons is that the Liberal Party have not been hateful enough. They're hateful, but they haven't been hateful enough. They haven't burrowed into this hate and this fear and this resentment and this division in the same way that One Nation have. And it's interesting to me that One Nation choose the one topic, mass migration, and it's from there that they attack everybody. But the problem has been that also at the last election, and let us not forget this, at the last election, basically the Labor Party eradicated the Liberal Party, not the National Party, who didn't lose any seats, but the Liberal Party. The question is also, and this puzzles me, why at the last election there has been a surge to Labor, but right at the moment the polls are indicating a surge in the other direction towards One Nation. One of the arguments could be that for some reason they're sick of our vote. And people get that way. They think, you know, they've had their time. I don't see any great value in whatever they've done for me, regardless of all the handouts that they've given out, which would never have happened under the Liberal Party. And that, there've been an increase in wages, but that's stabilised. You're like, who in the hell takes note of any of that? No one does unless you watch politics like I do. But so what is actually affecting people that would make them say, Labor's not for me, so I might trickle over to One Nation, even though there aren't that many Labor people who are doing that. What about those people that are now on the Liberal Party who left, voted Labor last time, and who are now saying, well, I'm not voting Liberal anymore, I'm voting One Nation? Where are they? And why are they changing their votes so dramatically? Or are they just people from the Liberal Party who voted Liberal last time, but they're now moving? I don't know. I guess there'll be some statistics about all that. Someone will do a poll on that, and we'll get that particular answer at some particular point. But Labor under Peter Malinowskis seems set for a massive win at 25th of March poll, but all eyes are on the right-wing vote, how the right-wing vote will shake out. So again, focused on One Nation. Ashton Hearn entered the campaign. She's the Liberal Party leader. She'll only be a Liberal Party leader of one, I think, by the end of this election, if she even maintains her seat. She said there's no mountain high enough. Hearn, who stepped into the leadership of South Australia's beleaguered Liberal Party in December, about 100 days before the 21st March election, has consistently used mountain metaphors for the task ahead of her. More than a mountain, it's impossible, give up, you're not going to achieve anything. The seemingly insurmountable obstacles she faces is the utter dominance of the Labor Party. And this is an anomaly, because Peter Malinowskis in this state is loved. And the reason why is because we're a sport mad country, is a state, is that he has brought sport into South Australia like never before, through the Gather Round, through Live Golf. Must be getting late in this podcast, my words are slurring. Live podcasts, Live Golf. I'll get it right in a second. And now he's bringing Formula One back. So he is the sports guru, and people love that in him. He hasn't dealt with ramping, which is an issue at the last election. He has increased funding to health, though, and it's yet to see how that pans out. And the other issues that sit in this state, he's looking at in terms of taxing or getting rid of some taxes that are a burden to those people building houses. So he's trying to do all of that. He's a good-looking dude. He speaks really well. Made a bit of a blur about speaking about people wiping old persons' bums. Shouldn't have said that. And he's also did away with Writers' Week, which is a terrible thing to do if you're people my age who enjoy going along to that. He's made a few blues, but they're nowhere near as significant as the Liberal Party, who simply has a range of people locked up for breaking the law, sniffing drugs and fraud. This is the Liberal Party here in South Australia, hence the reason why they're doing so badly. So, and it goes on to say in this article by Tory, the seemingly insurmountable obstacles she faces is the other dominance of the Labor Party. The latest news poll showing the Liberal primary vote at 14%, a level that could leave it without a single seat. The poll taken last week put One Nation's primary vote at 24%, with Labor on 44%. The Craggy Valley's Hearn faces include a party that got smashed at the last election and has not lost more seats since. The Conservative faction dominated the party machinery, a very popular premier that tainted the turmoil of the Federal Party and the menacing threat of One Nation. So, there is no doubt that it will be an interesting election, and there is no doubt that for whatever reason, the Liberal Party will be wiped out at the next election. The question really here remains is what's going to happen with One Nation. And this is why on the 21st, I do ask you to tune in to myself and Nathan Ogilvie. We're going to be doing a live feed of the election on that night. I think probably through Nathan's channel, but nevertheless, I'll stream it to my own. And you will be able to see us respond to what happens at that election. Someone has said, pretty racial comment from our Premier. It was, I agree, it was very unhelpful. So so just trying to read through some of your posts here. So hold on, what am I doing? Thanks for so many people coming online. I really appreciate it. It's always a buzz for me. I never know how many people's going to join me. So it's a bit of an exciting moment. I haven't had, and I'll be frank, I haven't had a good morning, but we've kind of sorted itself out, and I just love getting into the throes of having these conversations. Did Adelaide get the Grand Prix back? Apparently we did, Mick. It's a couple of years down the track. Pretty low quality vote swap. Is swapping $1 for 5 cents, Cosman. Can you name one candidate running in this? I can. Thanks. And I do want to thank you for asking that question, because there's a little bit of a story to this. I know it was the last election or the one before, I ran with, because I've been involved in politics for some time, I ran with Stephen Polaris. And Stephen is part of a political party he calls Real Change SA. And Stephen is fabulous man. He's KC now, I suppose it is. And he was a very astute political brain whose focus was on working around issues in relation to domestic violence and protecting women from men who are violent. And so I've got this particular Facebook page from him. I'll bring it up, because when you ask about who to vote for in South Australia, I will be voting for Stephen Polaris, because I know the man. He was public prosecutor, he's a King's counsellor, and someone who spent over 40 years inside the justice system fighting for those who need it most. And he's a fabulous man. And I've also sent out, I don't know if Steve, you're going to get hold of this or ever see it, but I've asked Stephen to contact me so that we could get together and have a chat about his policies, the things that he thinks are important, so that you could be better informed about that. So thanks for asking that question. Is there somebody that I would vote for? It is Stephen Polaris would be that particular person. So that's the answer to that question. I will be voting for Stephen because he's a wonderful individual. Mark Aldridge. What do I think of Mark? Now, I've known of Mark. I think I met him once, incidentally. But Mark is a guy who stands at every election. I have no idea of what his policies are. I wouldn't vote for him, though. But it's unfair for me to criticise him because I don't know who he is specifically. And if he wanted to come onto my channel and be interviewed and have a chat, I'd be more than happy to do that as well. Right, so, okay. So what else do I have here that I need to talk about? All right, there's this. So I just wanted to talk a little bit. Someone says Pete does sports. Pete does sports balls things. It's called bread and circus. He does it very well, actually. So I wanted to have a conversation with you also about Donald Trump. Now, I don't, on my podcasts, I don't tend to talk about Donald Trump all that often, primarily because I don't think my viewers necessarily enjoy that conversation. So I won't. But in this particular instance, I wanted to bring up another one, and I'm sorry that person who suggested that I use that I present Sky News shit, and you try to avoid it, and I present it because this is so typical. Sky News, for whatever reason, no, there is a reason. Sky News believe that Trump is the embodiment of what we need here in Australia, that Trumpism is the way to go, because for some reason, now I will be the first to agree that I perhaps live in this bubble. I have a certain view of the world, and it's always about fairness, equity, fair go, and it's about looking after those people, or caring for and advocating for those people who probably are unable to do that for themselves. In other words, the most vulnerable people in our community. That's where I come from as a social worker. So I live in a bubble that says these are the people I should be caring for, and whoever infringes upon these people, and this I guess includes my attitude towards the ISIS brides and their kids, whoever infringes upon those people, I will confront. And I'll call you out wherever you do it. But when I see stark, and I'm also prepared to say, well, I can understand where those people on the left are doing things that also infringe upon those people. An example of that is when the left failed to fight back against the disgusting, disgraceful, Islamophobic bullshit that happens on the right. When we stop fighting back about Indigenous rights, when we stop fighting back about the rights of those people that are on the NDIS, when we stop fighting back against domestic violence and the number of women that get killed each year, when we stop pushing back against that stuff, which happens on the left as much as it does on the right, I'm going to stand up against it. It's kind of where I am. So when I hear on Sky News someone telling us and informing us about so much bullshit about Trump, I have to play it. And so I apologise to the person who said, why are you playing stuff that I try to avoid watching? I'm playing it because it is evident of the stain that is part of the right wing on Sky News. And there's no way in the world Danica here did not push back against this woman, because they believe the crap that this woman says. So I'm just going to play you just a little bit of this so you'll see what I mean.
It's the all-important State of the Union. At least 12 Democrats are planning to ditch Donald Trump's address. Unsurprising, of course, they've got no respect, and I'm sure there'll be more.
What? And they've got no respect. No respect. I do remember a moment when Biden was president and they were heckling him. The right was heckling. But okay, let's forget about that, because clearly that doesn't matter anymore, because the bubble that you're in doesn't identify any of that.
Hisses and discussions by the Democrats as he's trying to give this all-important speech. But what do you think we can expect?
Well, I do think you're going to see some of those.
So who in the hell is Tudor Dixon? And I don't want to have a go at her first name, but I've never ever, I must confess, this isn't a sly, and any sly, not sorry, I've never seen a Christian name such as Tudor. Interesting.
People not show up. I think that some of the Democrats have actually told people, if you're going to act out, don't show up. It didn't go well for us in 25 when everybody came and acted out. So we're going to try to get we're going to make it sound like we're boycotting, and that's going to be a good look for us. I don't think it's going to be a good look for them. I think what they're going to end up, remember when I think his name was DJ, the young boy who had brain cancer last year, they couldn't even stand up and clap for him. They looked so foolish. They didn't.
Can I add that was a lie, incidentally?
Look foolish. They looked nasty. They looked like a group of very
angry, nasty people who couldn't stand for a child, who couldn't celebrate the boy who was going to West Point.
I just think there's something interesting about that statement. So they're angry, nasty people. You could not get a more angrier, nastier person than Donald Trump. Like, for God's sake, unreal.
Couldn't celebrate, who couldn't honor the families of the young women who were murdered by illegal aliens. I think what you're going to see.
And we couldn't get Pam Bondi to turn around and acknowledge all those women that were abused by Epstein and his crew. Couldn't get Pam Bondi to do that. Do you understand the hypocrisy that we're hearing here? It's just this one version of events, and they fail to see the hypocrisy. It blows me away.
Is Donald Trump is going to bring in a bunch of people like that. He's going to show what he's been able to do with prescription drugs. They're going to talk about what they're doing with health, where they're going to talk about taking some of these food dyes out. I think you'll see them talking about the prices going down, gas.
Isn't it great? Isn't it great that they've got their health secretary admits to sniffing cocaine off a toilet seat, for Christ's sake. Yep, they're well balanced.
Prices going down. He's going to talk about the Trump accounts. He's going to talk about all these things that he's doing. And I think he'll get into tariffs too. I think he'll point out, look at all the money that came in on tariffs. We're going to do it a different way. I believe it's the right way to do it. And he's going to prove that so far it has been the right way to do it.
No, it hadn't. A load of crap. So that's the right presenting this stuff, which is, to me, there is no evidence that the tariff shit has actually brought about. It has not changed one thing. The Chinese, who were supposed to be targeted of all of this, have increased their gross national product over the last 12 months. It hasn't impacted them. Trump has not brought manufacturing industries back to the United States. They are not better off. There is not more money coming to the United States as a result of the tariffs. It's all bullshit and it's a lie. And the courts have said, well, actually it is a total fabrication. And there is this one report in The Guardian, which I'll also show you, which is majority believes Trump moving the US in wrong direction. Poll finds most US adults think Donald Trump is moving the country in the wrong direction during the second presidency, according to the new poll, and a host of them released the day before his State of the Union speech. 55% of adults feel that Trump is changing the country for the worse, 30% increase from around the same time of the first presidency. Survey conducted from 27 to 30. So we've got this woman telling us how wonderful they are and all the advances that is made. The pharmaceutical shit, well, not all that much has changed in that area either. It doesn't come anywhere near the PBS and what we do in Australia, and never will. The number of people who held that the view also increased 4 points from April. Unsurprisingly, support for the president splits down party lines and so forth. Faith in the democratic system of government also decreased during the first year of Trump's second term. In March 2025, 43% of US adults said they agreed that the system of checks and balances dividing power between the president, Congress, and the courts is working well. Only 32% thus felt that way in the new survey. It has all changed from 43 to 32. And so it goes on. Trump's America should never be Australia's, should never be reflected in Australia, but we will wait and see. And particularly, as I said earlier, if we've got to go down this, we're going to go down this track of division and hate and fear, then clearly, we're not going to the right spot, and life will be a disaster. So I want to thank everybody who has come on board today. I do need to refer back to, there's been 50 votes. I appreciate it. Should ISIS brides and their children be permitted back into Australia? The answer to that is, where am I? The answer to that is yes, 82%, no, 18%. So well done, everybody. If you haven't put your vote forward, please do so now. 50 is a pretty good number. What it is with political funding is that we don't see the Israeli funding. No, fair comment actually. So Paul says Pauline Hanson is the same lunatic as Trump. Ain't that true? Ain't that true? Paul correct, or is it just our polls that are incorrect as of late? Don't know which poll. Tony, the current environment bubbles these fools to the surface for us to see. They are emboldened. I'll pop that up. So someone's commented, Tony, the current environment bubbles these fools to the surface for us to see. They are emboldened by seeing their leaders openly be racist. Yeah, it's a good point actually. Do people accept this version of racism? Is this the thing? So it's a bit like, I reckon, when they see Trump. And they see Trump, this notion that Trump's strong and he's tough and there's all these other stupid friggin' things. That he's a strong man. So we're going to vote for him because he may be amoral, he may be a racist, he may be misogynist, he may be a criminal, may be a fraudulent, he may be a rapist of women, he may be a whole host of things, child sexual abuser. But apart from everything else, he appears to be strong. There's one thing you cannot say about Pauline Hanson, is that she gives that same impression of strength. None at all. Pauline Hanson speaks now the same way she did back in 1996. She has not her intellectual acuity is zilch. She has not, I don't know what reading she does. Pauline Hanson attends less parliamentary sessions than almost any other politician in Parliament. Pauline Hanson, I could not find one committee. Well, no, that's not true. I'll refrain that. It is rare for Pauline Hanson to appear on a committee. Rare. Because Pauline Hanson is so busy trying to breed her brand by appearing on Fox News, on Sky News rather, every night, and by doing a lot of podcasts and those sorts of things, that she hasn't got the time to sit down and question public servants about what they're doing, or to inquire or gather information about issues that should matter to her and to her constituents. No, she doesn't. She's too busy ingratiating herself to the public. So thanks everybody for participating in today. I really do appreciate it. Thanks for responding. 40-52 now in that poll, still 83%, 17% no. Really do appreciate all of that. Keep the comments coming. And I want to thank the person who gave me the $20. I really do appreciate that as well. Thanks, everybody. In the meantime, take care. Look after yourselves, people that you love, and just make sure that you're safe.